I know that Blackboard has a feature that you can record and you can film, and so that way we can have a library, we can build a library. Howard and I were supposed to meet with Paula this week, but I haven't had internet for the past 2 days, so I don't know what's going on in the world. But we should be, by next Friday, we should know how to use that feature on Blackboard. There are gonna be some times that we might not be able to record, live face-to-face, to record image, but we will record audio.
What's the Fisher player? What do you mean? You can record it on.
There is a feature, yeah, I really don't know how it is.
I think she's saying feature.
Feature, oh, okay.
Yes, it's a dictionary.
We are going to,
I went to New York.
we're going to get an interactive set up so that, like, if you're not able to be here some morning, but you're at home and in your Spider-Man outfit and want to have coffee and just get online, and you can get online with us. And then we want to put it online for people who, in the classroom, for people who can attend, and your fellow students in the course room who can access it later. We'll put it online and they can watch it too. They'll miss the component of being able to ask the questions directly of the individual, but they won't miss the component of being able to contact Vanessa or I if they have questions. So.
This is pretty neat. I am very excited. And I wanted our first speaker to be a boom. So here is the boom.
But he's not here. But yes, tends to get the legal alien before, so if you don't understand her, you're gonna have a more difficult time understanding me.
There is one other thing. Any of you have a problem being on film?
No.
You still in the witness protection program back there, April?
No, I'm
This
free.
school is-
All
Okay.
my tickets are off my
YouTube
records.
is not there.
Okay. So,
And Juan says that it's okay since it's school, it's not YouTube or anything like that, it's okay to film him.
okay, bueno.
So I am going to introduce the first Talk Over Coffee speaker. His name is Juan Reyes, and he's with Baytown PD. He's going to talk about some sensitive subjects over here today. He's going to share with you some stuff that he might not even be allowed to share. So please, I am going to ask you that what you hear today, stays here and all that. And for the people that are going to be listening or, watching the video, I am going to ask for the same thing. He's with Baytown PD, like I said, and I guess I'm going to let him tell you what he does, because every time I talk to Juan, he's doing some James Bond kind of thing. So I'm going to let him tell you what he can tell you about himself.
He's not going to have to kill us after he tells us this stuff, is he?
Hopefully no.
That's 007 level stuff.
According to the new Obama program, we don't do anything anymore.
Okay,
Let everybody walk.
there you go.
So we're good. You want a controversy, I'm very open.
Hey, you threw it out there.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Detective Juan Reyes. I'm with the Baytown Police Department. I've been with the city with Baytown for 10 years. I was in another agency prior to that, 9 years. So I have a total of 19 years experience. I'm a certified master peace officer by the state of Texas. And I have been trying to work on my degree for the past 20 years. So I have quite a number of college hours. I don't know if they mean anything, but hey, I'm still out here alive and working. I've been assigned to detectives for the past 7 years. When I came over to detectives, my partner, who is a character, I wish he was here.
Oh, he is something else.
He wanted somebody who was pretty much somebody that could relate to the Hispanic community. And they went and started looking around. It didn't take them very long to realize there was the only illegal alien in the police department in history. I was born and raised in Guatemala till the age of 12. I crossed the river at 12 and a half on a plane. But I came here when I was 12. Studied in Houston, went to the school district, HISD, joined the military, and did some because I was in college and decided to become a cop. So he felt that my background and growing up in the hood, in the neighborhood in Houston was good enough for me to come here and start working with him, trying to identify and work along investigating gangs. Well, the gang world is not what it used to be before. The gang world has completely changed. And it involves organized crime, and it involves individual cells. So my primary focus of investigation is, most of the time that we spend is gang intelligence. Unfortunately, there's only two of us working for the city of Baytown. So most of the time that we have, most of our time is consumed in intelligence. We network with FBI, DEA, HPE, everybody who you can think of. We get phone calls, mostly on a daily basis. A lot of people have this conception that Baytown is a very small town, very small, quiet community. Behind the scenes, Baytown has an extensive history of gang, organized crime, and a very large hub for the distribution of narcotics across the country. I cannot get into detail because we're still in the last stage of a major case that I worked. It involved a cold murder case dating back to 2004, which involved a connection to the Mexican drug cartels. Two of the guys have already been taken care of. One is still pending. But that is just to tell you how Baytown is in the map. If murder takes place here in this city, related, or could be sanctioned by somebody within the Mexican drug cartel, we have problems. And it's not just Baytown, it's all over the country. Okay, what is the government doing about it? Very little. Supreme Court keeps on passing rules and laws and adjusting this and that, limiting our powers. You know, I believe, you know, we have freedoms here. I understand that everybody does. But when you limit so much, you just open the door for so many bad things to go wrong, unfortunately. And sooner or later, we're going to be dealing with ISIS here. You know, we're going to be dealing with Mexican drug cartels in full force coming through the borders and doing things. That's what I see. That's what I project. And based on my experience and what I know, they're already here. So what's next? Okay. I understand that this class is not a politics class. It's not government. It's nothing like that. You're pretty much training or being educated to do prevention, right? Counseling and stuff like that. Well, I feel that your battle is much harder knowing what I know. And what I mean by that is that you are trying to educate, prevent, and curb behaviors, cultural practices, all these things combined, you know, families, backgrounds, and all this kind of stuff. And you're getting one individual who's growing up in the community, whose dad was a dope dealer, a gang member, grandfather was a dope dealer, a gang member. Now this child is growing up to be a dope dealer, gang member. And this child is now using drugs. And this child is now getting in trouble in school. And everything starts with little things. Class disruption. You know, they get called into the principal's office. Now you cannot write them a citation, which is good. I think if the school district does not have the power to discipline a child properly, and he takes a citation to try to curb that behavior, it's not going to work. You continue to take the powers out of the school districts on how you can discipline children because of fear of lawsuits, fear that the kids cannot pray in school and all that kind of stuff. To me, that's violation of civil rights. Because every child around the school has the right to be protected from those small individuals that are causing all these problems at the schools. the laws and everything that we tend to do here is for the minority. Screw the majority, but for the minority, because we have all these civil liberty unions coming in and say, oh, poor little John, he grew up poor. Guess what? I wasn't even born here. My parents worked 2 freaking jobs. I went to school every day. And I didn't go out there smoking dope and doing all these kind of things. I made my choices. My parents were very disciplined people, and they raised me, I believe they raised me right. And they did with my other brothers and sisters. So all these excuses, you know, we tend to just baby everybody. We don't put no responsibility on individuals anymore. What happens when a police officer shoots somebody? Oh, poor little boy, he wasn't doing anything, he wasn't doing that. You know what, let's look at the whole picture. The media tends to project one different thing and, you know, speak everything, you know, put the news what it is. You know, don't make, you know, don't judge an action for 5 seconds, 10 seconds of news that you hear, you know. And there's bad shootings, there's good shootings. If there's bad shootings, and if I'm an officer and I shot because I didn't have my head right, because I had prejudged situation or the individual or anything, and it was a bad shooting, I have to pay the consequence. But let's not crucify everybody. And what all this comes to is what is going on in the streets here nowadays, in the schools. We're dealing with Kush. Major problem. I mean, that thing is, you know, everybody says, all these guys at the plants are smoking. It's legal weed. It doesn't test positive on my piss test, so I can smoke it. You keep smoking that crap, and you're gonna lose your freaking head.
Does everybody know what Kush is?
Synthetic marijuana. Synthetic marijuana is probably gonna be, remember when Xanax, Zoma, and all the bars and all that stuff was going on? It was, first it was marijuana and cocaine at the schools, alcohol, cigarettes, and all that kind of stuff. It started like that. Now, all this fluctuation of Kush, you know, is being sold at some of the smoke shops here in Baytown and across the state and across the country. But that stuff is really affecting people. I was called out one day on a guy that was arrested that broke into our community center building here on Diffie through the 2nd floor, made his way down. He couldn't get out. He was very high under the influence of Kush.
This is the guy that broke in during the weekend,
Yes.
and when they came on Monday, he was naked.
Yeah, it was Sunday morning
Sunday morning.
that one officer found him. He was naked. The whole 1st floor was flooded because he busted some pipes and caused a lot of damage. He couldn't be charged with anything other than trespassing. Okay, so the city ended up flipping the bill for all those damages. This kid was a very normal kid. Good student. He was going to school in Houston. He was for arts or computer or something, but he was already in the college system, going to school. He was doing well. He started smoking Kush. The end result of his addiction to Kush was that he lost his mind. He walked out of class, left his car, picked up a Bible, a stick, and walked all the way from Houston to Baytown preaching the Bible. And how the stars were lined up, and he was here, God sent him, and I mean, he was gone. He was gone. He ended up going to a psychiatric hospital, and the last time that I had spoken to his mother, he had already been there a month. From being a normal child, doing real good, had his head, you know, right, smoking Kush, pretty much lost everything. So he's not the only one. We're finding people outside in the streets, you know, smoking Kush. You know, you hear about all these drugs coming in. Alligator, it hasn't really got here, the one that pretty much eats your flesh. And people will use that. I mean, people know that all these drugs can do something to you, but they still take a chance. They still take a chance. So, when we have all these problems with all these illicit drugs, you know, marijuana, cocaine, all that, we're fighting this war to prevent all that stuff from coming into the board.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you fight against something like Kush? It's legal.
It is legal. Well, the problem is, how to fight it, I don't have the answer. I know that, and I would be more than glad, I'll give you my information and stuff to provide you with information and measures that guys in my unit are taking, the city's taking, or administration is very serious about this.
I mean,
They-
even like these vape shops that are popping up and everything, I've heard that they're selling Kush in some of those, is that what it's
Smoke
called,
shops.
vape shops?
Yes, the
Smoke
smoke
shop, yeah.
shops.
Well, way back in the sixties, I'm sure Howard knows this, they were called head shops, you know? And stuff, it blows my mind what's considered legal. And yet this is happening on the street.
It's happening. It's being made here in Dayton. We have houses, dope houses. I mean, have you ever been inside of a house where they sell large quantities of dope? As soon as you kick that door and you go in, you're walking into the nastiest, more disgusting places you ever been. Filthy. And these people live like that. And they make that drug in those environments. And all they do is, through the internet, order the packages, the chemicals, they buy them, they make it, bag it here, and distribute it in the stores, or sell it. And we have, yes,
If you want to do something about it, you know, government-wise, we cannot, you know, as a whole entity, we cannot do anything about it. But I know in Mount Bellevue, it's illegal to sell the synthetic marijuana. You know, the community got together, the chief of police is extremely against, you know, because of the dangers of the synthetic. So they do have an ordinance, and it's a city ordinance. Not that they still sell it, you know, they didn't stop selling it, but now it's harder for people to get it. And yeah, the places where you go to buy it, usually there is a code word. You know, when you walk in, you say the code word, and they know that it's safe to sell to you. And they change that code word like every 2-3 days. But so far, that's the only thing that we can do as a community. We just get together, we just try to find a champion, and we do a city ordinance. It will decrease the availability and the access. People will still find a way to do it,
Obviously,
but it will be harder.
well, especially since the internet's so easy to figure out how to
Exactly.
do these things. You can do it
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah.
So how do we go about getting an ordinance signed into action? Or
The first thing that you need to do is you research, how do I pass an ordinance, okay? And then you need to find a champion, you need to find a stakeholder that is very active in the community, somebody that has some power, some clout, you know, somebody that knows people. And then you go from there. It's gonna take you years to do something like that, or less. The chief at Mount Bellevue, you know, I went to a talk that he did, and it didn't take him long to do it. You know, he's the chief, and he knew the city council people, and he got with the mayor, and he presented the evidence, and boom, it was done almost immediately. You know, but that is the number one thing. You need to find a champion, and that person will be your voice, and that person knows the people.
and our department is taking the necessary steps to try to create city ordinances. But we wanna make sure we get it right. We wanna make sure that if it gets challenged at a higher court, we can stand our ground. One of our guys, a very smart guy, he is dedicating a lot of time to this. He has coordinated meetings with the Harris County District Attorney, Chambers County, other police agencies. So we are, you know, working to try to fight this new evil that we're actually fighting. And And the problem is, down the road, you know, somebody's gonna shut us down. Because, you know, I put it to you like this. There are laws already that says kush is illegal, but it has to have certain chemicals. So what it happens is they have a list of chemicals that are banned. So these guys go through the list and say, okay, so they get substitute all those chemicals. So you get it, you seize it, you send it to Harris County lab, they test it, those chemicals are not present. So what happens? You don't have a charge. So by the time you
Problem
get
is,
it,
I have a chemistry, well, not chemistry, a science background, but you change the chemical properties of something, you can either make it worse, or you can make
That's
it
what's happening.
ineffective, and it's probably getting worse.
it's getting worse. And that's why we're starting to see these kids smoking that stuff, losing their minds. You know, overdose. If I'm not mistaken, do not quote me, please. But at San Jack, there were about 14 overdoses over a weekend on Kush. Like I said, this is something I believe I heard. Do not quote me on it, but I do believe a conversation came up that there was a number of overdoses over a weekend. I mean, for a town of, I would estimate 100,000 people here in Baytown. It is a lot. It is a lot for you to have this number of people coming in.
The medical community, they're scratching their heads because they cannot determine, they do not know what are the type of damages that this synthetic stuff is doing to the kids, to the brains. A friend of mine with the DEA, she came and presented at one of my conferences, and she was talking about how the son of one of her friends, he was doing synthetic years ago. I get goosebumps because it was a case that really touched me. And every once in a while, the effect that it has on him, the reason why he ends up in a psychiatric hospital is because he starts howling like a dog. And he goes for periods of time without howling, you know, he living a normal life. And then all of a sudden, he starts howling again, and then he gets put in a psychiatric hospital. He's there for about 15 days, then he stops. And the doctors don't even know how to treat him because they don't know how it's affecting his brain. They know he starts howling, you know, every few months.
Well, that's the problem with any kind of mental health issue anyway, they really don't know how to treat it. They can guess as to what neurotransmitters it's affecting from a scientific point of view, but mental disorders are not typical medical disorders. You can't just
But
follow
I
the
don't believe
protocol.
these are genetic mental disorders. I believe these are, you know,
Those are outside.
caused because of some of this, the use of illicit drugs.
Exactly, I mean, some of it is,
Especially-
there were people who have no history of that in their lives, or it could go back several generations, but I don't believe all those things are genetic, and again, it's coming from a healthcare background, with a lot of mental disorders. It's not that it's a choice, but there's a lot of environmental factors that cause mutations inside our own biochemical makeups that can make us more addictive to certain things and more prone to having certain types of reactions to certain chemicals in the body. There are some people that don't get high off of certain drugs, and the medical community has no clue why. They actually study people like that to find out what proponents of addiction there are. So then what makes somebody addicted to a drug? Is it an allergic reaction? Is it their chemical makeup? Is it a force outside? I mean, there's so many, I'm opening up a whole
Complex.
can of worms here.
You know, there are a lot of
There's a
factors
lot of
that you
factors.
can't control for. There are people who have mental disorders already who
You can't
gravitate
just-
into the drug using world too. And of course, if you have a mental disorder and you get into something like Kush, which they call it synthetic marijuana, but there's nothing in Kush that's anything like marijuana.
Doesn't even give you
And
the same high from what I understand.
no, and you get tilted a little bit. It can make things worse. It's not a good idea, you know, to medicate with things like Kush or bath salts or
And you
something
can't
like
just
that.
say, well, it's a genetic problem, because that's not always the case.
I have a question. Juan was talking about the going into the drug houses and where they put together these packets of these mail order things. How involved are the Baytown gangs or the Latin American gangs near our border? How involved are they in that?
Okay. The way everything is working now is you have all these battles going on in Mexico with all these different drug cartels, control over certain parts of routes. And so all these drug cartels are basically military people. I mean, they're kind of like, they use military tactics, they're trained like the military do. These are barbarians. These are people who will cut your head in a split second and not worry about it. They'll move on. All these drugs are being pushed through Mexico, and what we're seeing now is we're seeing more meth than cocaine. It's easier to bring in meth than coke. So we're starting to see a large amounts of meth here, and of course the price of cocaine has gone up. So what is happening is these drug cartels have connections with local gangs here, prison gangs. You know, you have your Houston, you have your Texas Syndicate, Mexican Mafia, Aryan Brotherhood, Banditos, and all that. So all these groups have connections within the Mexican cartels, either through family or business. They bring in the dope, and you have all these individual sales now. You have one guy who is doing very well, who is not a gang member, who has family on the other side of Mexico, and they're pushing dope. And they start selling to all these local gangs here. So this little Houston group is going to come together and they start selling dope. This Texas Syndicate guy is going to come together and start selling dope. And what they're starting to do, they know that if they're organized with a hierarchy of leadership, they know that we can easily target them and basically take everybody out on RICO cases and federal cases. So what they do now is like, okay guys, you go do whatever you have to do individually, and don't forget to pay your little tax here. That's what they're doing. So that's why you have so many people involved in the drug business now. So to me, Hispanics control the large amount of drugs, okay? What we call the weight. And then you have your white guys and your black guys, and what these guys do, white guys go out and buy it and move it. Black guys tend to get it and distribute it within the community. Or you have your local street level gangs, kids, Hispanics, that buy and distribute in the community. And that's what's going on. All this crap about, man, you're black, you're white, Aryan Brotherhood, Aryan Circle, you know what? All the race card, it's like it's a joke to me. Because I have Hispanic people telling me, nah, you're messing with me because I'm white. You're messing with me because I'm black. I tell them, dude, I'm the last person you want to talk about being racist because I'm a wetback myself. Oh, I'm sorry, man. It changes. The demeanor changes. So all this race card doesn't mean anything to me. Because you see black and Aryan Brotherhood, who are supposed to be supremacists, smoking crack together.
Ah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they're smoking crack together. They're having homosexual relationships together. And we know that for a fact. So all your racism and all that crap don't mean shit when you're out there making money and using dope.
Can you give us I remember seeing one of your presentations that you listed all the gangs and you gave it a little description of what they do and where do they operate from, what are the gangs that are in the schools. Can you give us a little bit of that? And I don't know how much time you have. We have until 7:10.
We have
So, but if you can give us a list of the different and their markings, like the Houstons and so I have one time I follow a guy because he had a Houston symbol. And I think I texted you the license plate number, you know, so, can you give us a little bit of,
Inside of that, about the
yeah,
gangs? Yeah.
Another quick question. I lived up in Dallas for years, and my son went through Dallas, one of the Dallas high schools and everything. And I was very involved with the Seagoville Citizens Police Academy and everything, because my son and I wanted to make sure. And they did gang stuff every year. What's the difference between the Dallas and the Houstonian gangs?
he's the, he teaches with CPA.
Uh-huh.
He's the one that comes in to teach us the class about guns. That's how I met him.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Because I thought that was fascinating. I mean, and it was one of the biggest things. I remember, you know, my son when he was walking around with a blue, light blue sweatsuit one time and everything, and I said to him, "Get that off. You walking in the street, you're gonna get picked up and be mistaken for a gang member." I mean, I was very, and he was a white boy, and apparently that light blue sweatsuit was a Mexican gang up in Dallas, I believe, or something. So I mean, it didn't matter. He was a white boy walking along the street with the hood up down. It's somewhere in Dallas, not even in Seagoville. They know him in Seagoville, you know, small little community outside of Dallas. But
And once again, all that is changing.
yeah, and that's going back. I mean, he graduated high school in 2004, so that's
Also, I think it was Freeway Ricky Ross who said that, of an LA gang, it said that, the white guys, gang colors are three-piece business gray. So, there might be some truth to that.
you never know. But I mean, is there a link between cities with gangs and stuff?
There is a link, especially Houston. Basically, they fall under Tango Blast. Tango Blast started in the late 80s, early 90s in TDC, in Texas Department of Corrections. Supposedly, these guys, the way it started, they were the soldiers for Texas Syndicate. They were not good enough to be TS, but they were good enough to go out and do their stupid shit. So all these idiots were out there running around doing stupid things in TDC. Well, TDC, when they broke away, Tango Blast, under their rules, is we're not going to have leadership. We're not going to have a general. We're not going to have basically established hierarchy. Everybody's equal. You vote a speaker. Every section in TDC, or I don't know how they're housed, but they have a representative who goes out and speaks on behalf of the whole group. It's a democracy.
And what do they speak about?
Uh,
Recruitment?
Politics.
Oh.
How they're going to educate themselves for.
Some of them can be
So-
quite literate.
Basically, they do business. They have a speaker. Well, TDC, because they like to play too many politics, they say, well, they're really not a gang according to what we have, to the rules, because they don't have a hierarchy. Well, guess what? Now they are a security threat group because now they control TDC. If you bring a Texas Syndicate guy into TDC and he has a TS on him, and you let him walk into the population, that guy's gonna be dead within the first couple of hours. You know, they control TDC. Texas Syndicate does. What Tango Blast is composed of is every gang member. Your mom is supposed to be Hispanic. Your dad could be anything. As long as your mom is Hispanic, you're in. You have to be in TDC. These are the rules, and you have to be basically. You got to meet the quota, or what they call basically. You got to be jumped in. They beat you down for a couple of seconds, whatever, fight, and man, you are the man now. You're one of us. We love you. Sorry for beating your ass, but hey, we're friends now.
So you have to take a couple punches.
You have to get your butt.
I would imagine they're pretty bad punches. Too.
Yeah, well, yeah. So once they're jumped in, now they're Houston. Okay? They can be Linos, they can be from Old Baytown, they can be Palisade, they can be Blood, Crip, it doesn't matter. Mario's gang, whatever they want to be. You know? Once they get in there, they're going to become part of Houston. Once they're released from TDC, they go back to their gang, and they don't have to report to nobody. You know, like other gangs do. that they have meetings every month. They call it church or they call it juntas, depending on what gang you're talking about. Juntas means meeting once a month. These guys don't have to do that. These guys are go back in the community and that's it. They're still,
So they're
So
independent.
they're like elites?
yeah, they're independent.
They're
and
independent.
That's what the problem is with the drug world and Houston, because there's no defined hierarchy, which makes it difficult for law enforcement to say, okay, we're gonna take down this gang, because there's no hierarchy. Unless they become organized, and there's some cells out there that are organized, a bunch of Houstons come together, and there's somebody who always is gonna be a leader. Always, there's gonna be one person, the leader in the group, this person that is smart. They will steal cars, run dope, everything you can think of. But these guys actually go back and they become anybody. So what we see now too is that we're starting to see blacks, we're starting to see whites joining Houston. I mean, they have the star, they have that. We have kids claiming Houston and they haven't been to TDC. It's just out of control.
Is
Yeah.
that the symbol,
The Houston Astros logo could be the skyline of the city of Houston, the Baytown Bridge. It could be anything that represents your area, where you come from. So Tango Blast falls, Tango Blast is the gang. The gang is divided in 4 horsemen, what they call. You have Houston, which is the main one. Then you have D-Town, which is Dallas. You know, you have Fort Worth area. You have Austin, the Austin area. They say 4 horsemen, but there's actually more communities out there that are represented. You know, then you have the Dallas area. They call themselves D-Town. The guys from Houston, Houstons. The guys from Fort Worth, they call themselves Foritos. The ones from Austin, they call themselves Capirucha, which is a slang word for capital city. The guys from the valley call themselves Bayucos. So the guys from Baytown and Pasadena and Sugarland or Humboldt and all that area, they're gonna represent Houston, because Houston is the main, city here. The guys from the Dallas area and the surrounding community, depending on how far you live from Fort Worth or Dallas, that's who you're gonna represent. And that's what happens, and that's what Houston is. Texas Syndicate started getting very smart and said, you know what, those guys are recruiting more, or numbers are getting small. We keep on getting our butts kicked by the feds and local law enforcement. So what they started doing is they started recruiting at the street level. You don't no longer have to go to TDC, but you can actually recruit in the streets. They are telling everybody, do your thing, just make sure you remember us. So they're kind of getting away from that control of the individual, as long as everybody's making money. And that's what it's all about, making money. Don't go to school, make your money selling dope, doing this, doing that. So the drug world, and what we're finding here in the streets every time we kick the door and do a search, we're finding Houstons, we're finding Bloods, Crips, all mixed together for the sake of the dollar. You know, we kick the door, they're making the kush locally, they're selling cocaine, they're selling bars, and all this drug shopping that is going on, all these prescriptions that are people go out there and get, 20 crack hits to go and fill this prescription at different pharmacies across Houston, and they come back and, the crack hit gets 5 pills and $20 or whatever, and then this guy starts selling dope, those pills. They're making a lot of money out of prescription pills. And they're driving all around Houston. They go from one pharmacy to the next, dropping off people. And then they come back, and once the prescription are filled up, they come back, pick everybody up. They everybody turns in their prescriptions, they get their little pills, their little money, they let them out of the car and go on their way.
Oh my
until the next time.
God.
So you can actually buy a stack of prescriptions for about $500, depending on how many you get. Those $500 though, well invested money, because if you go fill up a bunch of those prescriptions and sell all those pills individually, you're gonna triple, quadruple your investment.
But isn't it because they have like these clinics that you can go into and?
The pain clinics?
Yes.
Yeah, you have your pain clinics, but that's, what we're finding more is the sale of the prescription already filled out. They're not even going to the pain clinics, they're buying this crap on the side. So you have, I mean, the world has become so greedy now that doctors are starting to get dirty.
I remember a long time ago, they had this doctor named Dr. Forbes. He was a weight doctor. And that's when the Prelude was very popular. You go in there, you get weighed. I went there one time, I'm not gonna lie. I was probably 119 pounds. He still gave it to me, right?
All you had to do is put rocks in your pockets. Up in New York, we had
Yeah,
a doctor, his
and,
name was Dr.
But you have to weigh a
Damian.
certain amount, but I still got him. I think he charged like $150. He see him, then you go bust your script. And it was downtown, close to the Montrose area, and the parking lot was just full of people in and out that office. And I said, Lord, how, you know, but it was terrible. And there's still people doing stuff like that. I had a cousin used to steal prescriptions from the doctor, and he'd write his own script and go get Prelude and stuff like that.
And that's what's happening.
And there was certain pharmacies that you could go to get them filled. The Scarborough's in Old Baytown, and there was another pharmacy here in Baytown. They would bust them because they knew, because they made the money, because they charged a lot for the prescription. And so the pharmacist made the money and that person got his money. You know, it was win-win on both sides. Yeah.
There's a lot of money to be made in different things. That's why you're seeing all these prescription pills being used, and you see it at the local schools. You know, what's easier to take you to school? Pills, kush, marijuana sometimes smells depending on how much you take in there. I don't think we have come across a lot of meth or cocaine. I mean, those drugs at the school level, at the high school level or junior high level. It's more of pills, and I don't know about kush, to be honest with you, but one of the things that I was coming across was when I was working at the schools was pills. You know, they would be out there selling in the hallway. And I remember one time I'm walking out of the office. I used to work an extra job at Sterling High School, and there's two kids there. They see me walking, and the pills just fall to the ground right in front of my face. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. You gotta be stupid. You would have made it. I would have never seen them. But, you know, a kid ended up getting charged with it.
In my hometown, a couple of guys just got busted. They were veterans. They were getting their meds free from the government, from the VA, and selling them. And when they send prescriptions, you get 180-day supply usually.
Yes, you do. And they just drop those prescriptions on veterans. You can go in
You
and
can
just
go in and
say,
get anything.
I'm in pain, and you'll walk out of the VA with a 6-month prescription for some of the strongest pain
Yeah.
pills. I know, because I go with my own husband.
I
you
mean,
know.
not only is the government paying for the drug,
He went in and
they're
said,
selling, and then
yeah.
somebody else is selling it.
It's crazy. He went in one time and said, he told the doctor, I'm having a hard time concentrating. Without saying anything else, he walked out with the prescription for Adderall. It's delivered to my house every 30 days without question. We just have to sign for it.
You know, we're all taxpayers.
You know.
We're all taxpayers. We pay.
But what I'm saying is, I mean, they're going out and selling it. This is how easy it is for them to get a hold of, you know. It's and you know, going back to talking about the pills in the street and stuff, I remember that even from when I was a kid. And I'm going back to being in high school in the late 70s, early 80s, you know. And, you know, and it's going back to the day where there was some pretty damn good drugs too, and alls, Quaaludes, you know, Black Beauties, Yellow Jackets. I'm trying to think of some of the good old names and everything.
Reds.
Black Beauties would keep you alive for days. You didn't need cocaine. Take a Black Beauty, it was better, you know. And stuff like that. I lived in a very wealthy, I grew up in a very, very, very wealthy white neighborhood. I'm telling you, that stuff was easy to get. There was no problem getting it. We didn't have to go into a bad neighborhood to get it. It was right in our own community.
Well, and that's the thing about it. You know, I grew up, like I said, I grew up in Guatemala, and growing up in Guatemala, hell, you can go buy cigarettes, a beer. I remember my dad would give me the money to go buy his beer, and he walked across the street to the store there, buy the beer and come home and get cigarettes. You don't need prescriptions to get, certain drugs. You can just walk in and buy it, but there was no drug abuse, and then you come over here and you start growing up and you start seeing all these things, and I become a cop, and then I start looking at the community, and I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. There's more drug abuse, more problems, and I'm telling you this because I have heard it from the law enforcement community, and I have heard it from the school district, people who are in the ends that know a lot about the community. In Katy, you have Cinco Ranch, you have all those nice neighborhoods who everybody thinks they're crap don't stink because they live at Cinco Ranch. You know what? I'd be damned if my daughters go to school over there, because you got more problems with those kids, spoiled little brats, driving Beamers, Mercedes and all that. You see more dope than anybody else.
That was me.
Than anybody else. There's rich kids selling
What,
dope.
serious, but, and again, I mean, and I think it was going back to my point, even with the veterans and getting all this thing. It may not necessarily be the veterans, but it can be the kids of veterans, because these kids are of age to sell this stuff. Adderall, I only graduated from UTMB with a bachelor's degree 7 years ago. And while I was on campus, I had more people approach me if I wanted to buy Adderall to study for exams. I could not believe, this is a medical college. These are medical students, some of them, that were approaching me and saying, do you need Adderall to study for exams? That's pretty bad. These are our future doctors, our future physician assistants, physical therapists and everything.
They were doing it in a controlled community.
No, they got busted. They did. There was a whole ring of them that got busted for it. But yeah, they do think it's in a controlled environment. But I mean, if that's happening on a very small college campus, I can't imagine something like University of Houston or even University of Texas and what goes on there. And some of it may not be you're such poor black Latinos or anything. These could be some rich kids that's getting this shit from home.
The way I see things, our country was founded by immigrants. Our country had racial tensions. Our country did some very ugly stuff back in the days. What nation hasn't done that? Okay? Mm-hmm. What empire hasn't done that? Everybody's done it. But when it's 2014, and you let the media, you let Hollywood, unfortunately, the president jump into something that is not even his freaking business, come in and make his opinion and divide, make those racial lines, define.
The media.
We have a problem, okay? Because I have not seen the president one time stand up and say, especially when that white kid was killed over there in New York, in the New York area, by somebody who killed him for ISIS. I never saw the president stand up and say, that could be my child. Not one time. But as soon as, unfortunately, a black kid gets killed, the incident in Florida was not law enforcement related, and he jumps in and says, that could be my kid. Ferguson, that shit's still going on. And he steps in something that is not his business. You know what? Let somebody else investigate that. But then you send this U.S. attorney who did not do anything here. I personally know something that pisses me off. I'm still burnt about it. And go over there and investigate something. That is where our problem lays.
When
our government condones certain things and wants to make an excuse because of racial or your race, because of your economic status. You know what? Do what the law says. Our Constitution was written many years ago. Those guys back then were not thinking about Kush. We're not thinking about all these drug cartels across the border. They were not thinking about ISIS. They weren't thinking about that crap.
They were thinking about storm.
They were thinking about the Tea Party and everything else. They weren't thinking about that crap. And then you're going to come over here and try to define the law? Come on, everybody, it's like the Bible. You read the Bible and I ask you, what does that mean? What does that mean? Everybody's going to have a different opinion. It's the same thing about law. Why does it take so many justices to come out with a decision? And we never get a good decision. Everybody defines it this way, it's individual opinions,
Absolutely.
you know? And what you do is you get this guys out here, as a law enforcement officer, you go, you see them make a deal, and you try to stop them, they take off running, you got a pursuit, you have an officer hurt, you have a citizen hurt, you take him down, he starts fighting you, you hit him wrong, and then the first thing that he says, my rights were violated, and this and that, and it becomes a big incident, and then you're being investigated, and then this crook is protected after what he did, poor little, you know, he was Hispanic, and he just bought this, or, you know, because he grew up poor, and he didn't have the right, you know, foundation when he was growing up. Stop making excuses for those people. They're responsible for their own actions.
They had a news report on that yesterday on Channel 11 when they were putting the guy who had fled from the police, had a car wreck, had a child in the car. When they'd taken him out, he's tatted up, no shirt on, hands cuffed behind him. They're putting him in the back of the car, and he says, my rights were violated.
Yeah.
That happened
And,
yesterday?
yes,
Yeah,
yesterday.
I saw that.
And the news reporter said, what did you do? And he wouldn't respond. He just got in the back of the car.
There's a pursuit. What does the media say?
Yeah.
You know, once this is going to be investigated, policies are going to be reviewed, and all this kind of stuff. Quit blaming. We didn't start the pursuit. We activated our lights. We tried to make that traffic stop. That person decided not to stop for a reason, and he led to something. The incident that happened to us here in Baytown at Academy, that unfortunately that kid was killed on Rolling Brook in Garth. They were crucifying us, trying to crucify us on something that we didn't have no control over, but that idiot made that decision to run from us, not us. He was out there doing something wrong, you know, and that's why, you know, parents, we're taking the responsibility away from parents. You go and talk to these parents, and they're ignorant. I'm sorry to say it, but, you know, I don't know, of course, there's no school for parenting, but shit, common sense tells you your kids have certain privacy. You know, the law says everybody has, you know, certain privacy, you know. Your kid, well, he might have, you know, the right to certain privacy. Bullshit. That's my freaking house. I'm paying the bills. My child does not have freaking privacy in my house. You can, it's like I tell everybody, you know, on certain things, the government can kiss my butt. Because my house is my house. You know, and I have rules in my house, and I will go through everything. I pay for everything. You're not going to tell me what clothes to buy you and all that kind of stuff. But expectation of privacy, kiss my butt.
Well, I'm laughing at that because my son used to give me a hard time. Well, he didn't give me a hard time. He actually was kind of proud of this. He wouldn't admit it back then, but you know, when we first got internet and stuff, and he was set up with an account. And you know, this again, it's going back to he graduated high school in 2004, so it was like 2000. And I was like, okay, you want an account? Here you go. What's your password? Well, that's my password. I said, no. This is my computer. You want to use my computer? I want to know what your password is. So we made a deal. He could have my password to my email account as long as I had his. And I told him, I'm going to look every day. So, you know, and there were a few times he was stupid and did things and said things, but, you know, yeah, no. Even when he was in college, I need your password for your student account.
Poor child.
And he would write it, but I mean, here you go, Mom. But he knew what was in,
That was the
he knew what it was yeah. And if he didn't get it to me, I very bravely would go in and change his password for him and get it. I was smart enough to know what he would do. Yeah. And he used to go around telling all his friends, my mother hacked my account. Yeah, you're damn right, I did.
I had a bad child that was taking those bar pills, and all she was a disaster. Remember that, huh, Bill Sharp?
I do.
And when she had a little girl, and I would always go check on the baby, my grandbaby, to make sure she's feeding her and she got diapers and stuff. And when I get there, the poor little baby just be sitting there just twiddling her fingers. And when she looking to see me, I always would stop and get a McDonald's. And I said, you need to go get a key made for me so I can come in here. And so one day I went there. She had the chain on the door, and she had two black men in there, and I know they were selling dope. And one of the guys said, it's a black lady at the door. I said, you better open this door, you know, and he opened the door, cause I put my key in there and I couldn't get in. And I say, Megan, what are you doing? She was in the bathroom, cause I told her if I ever come there and you high or on that dope, I said, I'm gonna hit you so hard, I said, you're gonna be passed out for 3 days. And I said, somebody gotta come scoop you up off the floor. So she wouldn't open the door, and she owed me some money. I said, run me my money. She only put half up under there, up under the door, and I say, the other half that you didn't give me, I said, get somebody else to take you to work. I was getting up at 5 every morning to go take her to Exxon. So you blew that. And I would just stop. You don't wanna act right? I'm done. So I didn't go, but I went and took the baby from her. I said, go get that baby and get her clothes, and I brought her home with me. I kept her for several months, right? Because you're not treating her right. And I would take her to a babysitter, I come to school, I go pick her up, and she said, Mommy, can I see my baby? I said, nope, not today, we're busy. But I did those things. I was a bully with mine, because you're not gonna do that. Because I did drugs and stuff when I was younger, and now that I saw what she was doing, it was just devastating to me, you know? And I see a lot of people in my complex. As a young guy, he would come and drink coffee with me in the morning, and he said, Miss Mary, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? And I sit outside, I pray, you know, and he would come and talk to me. He'd say, I always know that you'll give me some inspiration for this day. I said, today is gonna be a good day, you know, and we'll sit and we'll talk. And one day he made a mistake and he come and told me what he was doing. This dude is selling kush and pills, and then he went to his little, not a Beamer, it's a little Porsche or something. Some guy gave him the money for it, because he played him and told him he was a doctor. He told him, I saw what you was doing to that girl. And I said, if you don't give me some money and to write this off, he said, I'm going to call the police. He said, because what you was doing, he was doing something to her, and she was so full of pills, she was unaware. She didn't say yes. So this man gave this young man $10,000. And he's sitting up there, had this big wad of money in his pocket. I said, give me $20. He gave it to me. And he said, Miss Mary, I got to roll this. I said, you don't roll that over here on my porch, right? I said, go back to your car. And he pulled out this package. I said, when you get that? He said, oh, we packaged this ourselves at a smoke shop. I said, yeah. And I said, it's just ridiculous. And I see him all the time. He stay with this little girl on the corner. He was out there selling pills to little people. I guess 10, 11, 12, 13, I don't know how, you know, but they in school. And I was leaving out, and he out there just putting pills in their hand like that. And I said, look at this, you know, and I hate that. I hate to see that. And as I was going out the apartments, as the police over there, I said, Mr. Policeman, you should see what I see, right? And he was sitting there, his car was angled toward the apartments, but he didn't see what he was doing. They out in the open, selling pills, giving them those little bags of that kush. I've seen it, but I've never, you know, I don't smoke or nothing, but, and it's out in the open, and it's little people that shouldn't even be involved in that, smoking dope, taking pills, and they just be fooled. They had a rash of stealing going on in our apartments at one time, and this guy was smoking kush, getting it from this other gentleman I was telling you about. He was breaking into everybody's house over there. Go in there and take all the electronics, and I told him, I said, you better tell your little partner, if you go in my house and take my things, I'm gonna tear this whole complex up, right? And he said, oh, Miss Mary, I got you. He said, I ain't gonna let him go in your house, but he was going in all the neighbors' place, taking all of their electronics. They was stealing cars over there, just doing everything. But when they caught the guy, he went to jail. When he went to jail, all the stealing stopped. Isn't that something? Kicking people's doors in. They stole my neighbor's car. She had a brand new Charger, red. Stole the whole car, baby. He rode around for 3 days before they found it. And then parked it. Pitiful. But it's the drugs that's causing these young people to do what they do. Get a job. Everybody over there, they don't work, they just walk around. I said, look at this. Sad, sad, sad to see these young men walk around and do nothing. Get a job, baby. Some of them come and ask me, Miss Mary, can you get a cigarette? I said, baby, I said, you not old enough to smoke. And I said, then besides that, I'm not giving you none of my cigarettes. I said, get a job. And he, yeah, I say get a job. If you got a habit, you need to support it. Get a job. So he don't ask me for no cigarettes.
I have a comment and a question, if you don't mind. And I think what I'm hearing is that there's a lot to be said for parental oversight, for parents and
That's where it begins.
yeah. And I agree. But my question is, in these situations that you described earlier, where the parents are also gangbangers and the grandparents are gangbangers, and there's not a lot of parental supervision at home, what do we make of those situations?
I'll tell you where you start making a difference. Hold their freaking feet to the fire. A lot of these people receive government assistance. If it's proven that you have a history of distribution of drugs, drug abuse, and all that kind of stuff, and now you're starting to see your kid following your footsteps,